So where is the greatest risk going to be concentrated? And I want to be as specific as I possibly can here because I know that is what you need to know to make the right decisions for your family. And right now, based on the latest model data and the positioning of all of the key ingredients, the area that concerns me the most is a broad corridor that stretches from central Nebraska southward through Kansas and Oklahoma, and into North Texas. And this is the zone where you are going to have the most explosive combination of instability, wind shear, and low-level jet enhancement. And within that broader corridor, the area that I think faces the highest risk of violent tornado development is roughly the area from central Kansas through northwest Oklahoma. And that is the region where I would be most urgently taking shelter if I lived there. And I want to be very clear that severe weather will be possible well outside of that core risk area as well, because with a system this large and this powerful, the tornado risk is going to extend across a very broad geographic region. Now let us talk about the timing of all of this, because I know that is critically important. And right now, the way things are lining up, we are expecting the initial round of severe thunderstorms to fire during the afternoon hours as the dry line surges eastward and the cap that has been holding things in check begins to erode under the intense daytime heating. And once that cap breaks, we could see explosive convective development very quickly. And I mean that in a very literal sense, where you could go from relatively clear skies to a major tornado on the ground within a very short period of time. And that is one of the things that makes this setup so particularly dangerous, because the atmosphere is so primed with energy that once storms get going, they are going to intensify very rapidly. And the window for people to react and get to safety could be very short. So I cannot stress enough how important it is that you are already in position and already aware of your safe place well before any of this storm activity begins to develop. And I also want to address something that I think is extremely important when we talk about a storm of this magnitude, and that is the concept of tornado emergency versus tornado warning. And when the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning, that means rotation has been detected on radar or a tornado has been spotted, and you need to take shelter immediately. But when conditions are extreme enough and a particularly dangerous tornado is occurring, they can issue what is called a tornado emergency. And a tornado emergency is reserved for the most life-threatening situations. And given the setup we are looking at with this storm, the potential for tornado emergency level events is very real. And if you hear those words, you need to understand that those are not issued routinely. And they mean that a situation of the utmost danger is occurring, so please take any tornado emergency with absolute seriousness. Now let me also talk about the winter side of this storm, because this system is so large and so powerful that it is not only going to bring severe weather to the south and central plains, it is also going to bring a significant and potentially historic winter storm to portions of the northern plains and upper Midwest. And we are talking about blizzard conditions in some areas, with snowfall totals that could be measured in feet rather than inches in the hardest hit locations. And the combination of very heavy snow with those extremely strong winds that I mentioned earlier is going to create whiteout blizzard conditions that will make travel not just dangerous, but potentially fatal in some areas. So if you are in the northern tier of the country, from the Dakotas through Minnesota and into Wisconsin and Michigan, please understand that you are going to be facing a completely different but equally dangerous set of hazards from this same storm system. And I also want to make sure we talk about the flooding threat, because it is another major hazard with this system. And on the warm side of this storm, we are going to see extraordinarily heavy rainfall across a large portion of the Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley. And we are talking about rainfall totals that could reach 4 to 6 inches in a matter of hours in some locations. And when you get that kind of rainfall on ground that is already saturated from recent precipitation, you are going to see very rapid and dangerous flash flooding develop. And flash flooding is the number one weather killer in the United States on an annual basis. So please do not underestimate that threat. And remember the rule of turnaround, do not drown, because no road that is covered by water is worth trying to cross. So what do you need to do right now? And I want to give you a very clear and specific action plan here, because we are not talking about something that is days away anymore. We are talking about something that is arriving now, and the time to prepare is right now before this storm is on top of you. The first thing you need to do is identify your safe shelter location right now, whether that is an interior room on the lowest level of a sturdy, building a basement or a designated storm shelter, and make sure that every member of your household knows exactly where to go. The second thing you need to do is charge all of your electronic devices right now, because power outages are coming, and you are going to need those devices to receive warnings. And communicate. The third thing is to make sure you have emergency supplies, including water, food, medications, and a flashlight. And the fourth and most important thing is to make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings, including a weather radio with battery backup, and make sure your phone alerts are turned on and that your phone is not on Do Not Disturb mode, because a warning that you do not hear is a warning that cannot save your life. This is a storm that history will remember, and I want you to be on the right side of that history by being prepared and taking this seriously. Please share this forecast with everyone you know who lives in the threat area, because getting this information out could literally save lives. And we will continue to bring you the very latest updates as this historic storm system continues to unfold. So stay weather aware, stay safe, and we will see you in the next forecast. And before I wrap up, I also want to stress the importance of not waiting for a warning before you take action, because with a storm this fast, the time between a warning being issued and a tornado arriving could be just a few minutes. So please, make your plan right now while you are watching this video. Make sure every person in your household knows exactly where to go, because when the sirens go off, that is not the time to figure it out. This storm demands your full respect and your full preparation. Not ready institutionally, emergency management systems are calibrated to probabilistic expectations. Resources are prepositioned based on forecast ranges. Evacuation orders are issued according to protocols developed around historical intensification rates and historical lead times. When a storm behaves outside historical parameters, when it intensifies faster than the system anticipated, when the forecast track compresses the warning window from days to hours, the institutional machinery struggles to keep pace. Evacuation orders that should have gone out earlier couldn't go out earlier because the storm hadn't yet revealed what it was becoming. Shelter preparations were sized for the storm on the previous advisory, not the storm on the updated one. Resource preposition decisions were made before the rapid intensification event rewrote the threat picture. None of the people involved made bad decisions with the information they had. The information they had was wrong. And it was wrong because the storm exceeded the model, and the model was calibrated to a baseline that this storm wasn't operating from. The moment it turned is the moment that deserves the most scrutiny. Not the moment landfall occurred, not the moment the eye wall made contact with the first populated area. The moment before. The moment in the data record where the intensification rate bent sharply upward, where the pressure drop accelerated, where the wind speed curve went from gradual to steep. That moment represents the failure point of the entire predictive chain. Every warning, every evacuation order, every resource decision downstream of that moment was built on forecast confidence that the storm itself was in the process of invalidating. And the communities sitting in that downstream window were left holding the gap between what the forecast told them and what the storm actually delivered. That gap is measured in preparation that didn't happen, in reinforcements that weren't made, in evacuations that didn't complete, in people who made decisions based on one storm and experienced a different one. This is the human cost of forecast-busting intensification events. Not just the physical destruction, which is extensive and real and measurable in the immediate aftermath, but the deeper cost, the decisions made on incomplete information, the preparations calibrated to the wrong threat level, the entire chain of human choices that a warning system sets in motion, and that a faster-than-expected storm renders inadequate before the first gust arrives. The recovery will begin when the winds drop. Emergency teams will move in. Damage assessments will be conducted. Federal disaster declarations will be requested. The machinery of response will activate and deliver real assistance and real relief. People are resilient. Communities endure things that seem unsurvivable and find a way through. But recovery after events like this one carries a burden that the headlines miss. It isn't just rebuilding what was destroyed. It's rebuilding while knowing the next event is coming. While the clock is already running on the window between this storm and the one after it. While the budget allocated to recovery is the same budget that should have been allocated to hardening. While the political attention that briefly focuses on these communities in the aftermath of disaster is already drifting toward the next news cycle. While every repair, every patch, every temporary fix becomes the foundation for the next round of damage because there isn't enough time or money or political will to do the work that would actually matter. Building to a standard that accounts for what the climate is now delivering, not what it delivered in the past. What this storm adds to the record is not just a data point about wind speed or central pressure or storm surge height. It adds a case study in the consequences of operating with outdated assumptions. Every aspect of the failure cascade here, the compressed warning lead time, the structural damage that exceeded design specifications, the recovery deficit already in place before the storm arrived, the institutional machinery responding to a previous version of the threat connects back to the same root. The world these systems were built for is not the world they are operating in. The ocean is hotter. The rapid intensification events are more frequent and more extreme. The seasons are longer. The recovery windows are shorter. And the gap between the climate the models were calibrated to and the climate delivering the actual events is widening with every passing year. Closing that gap requires more than better forecasting, though better forecasting helps. More than improved building codes, though updated codes matter. more than additional recovery funding, though funding is essential. It requires a fundamental recalibration of the assumptions embedded in every layer of the system. The storm models, the risk assessments, the infrastructure standards, the insurance frameworks, the institutional protocols, all of them were built around a baseline. The baseline has shifted. Everything downstream of it needs to shift with it, or we will keep arriving at the same moment this community just lived through, watching the radar, watching the numbers change, watching the gap open between what was predicted and what arrived, watching a storm become a monster in the window between the last advisory and the next one, and finding, again, that nobody was ready. The storm will pass. The data will be analyzed. The reports will be written. The forecasters will study the intensification sequence and refine the models. The engineers will assess the damage and update the load calculations. The emergency managers will review the timeline and revise the protocols. All of that work is real and necessary and genuinely improves the system's capacity to handle the next event. But the next event is already forming somewhere over water that is warmer than it should be, in a month that used to be quiet, under atmospheric conditions that are increasingly favorable in seasons that the old calendars called off-peak. And when it turns, when the pressure drops faster than the models expect, and the winds jump past the previous forecast ceiling, and the warning window compresses, and the communities in its path are making decisions based on information that the storm itself is already invalidating, the question will be the same one it always is. Why wasn't anyone ready? The answer will be the same one it always is. Because ready means something different now, and we haven't finished redefining it yet.